I've decided to start a new life without you." The words hung in the air of the upscale restaurant where we'd gathered to celebrate my daughter's college graduation. Richard, my husband of 28 years, stood with his champagne glass still raised, his announcement displacing the toast he was supposed to be making to Clara's achievements. The clinking of silverware ceased. Conversations halted mid-sentence. 50 pairs of eyes darted between Richard and me, waiting for my reaction, for the tears, the shouting, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty." My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 58 years old, and until this moment, I had been playing the role of the devoted wife and mother perfectly. From the corner of my eye, I could see Isabelle Monet, Richard's much younger girlfriend, shifting uncomfortably at the back table. With practiced calm, I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed, cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Richard's plate. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I turned to Clara, kissed her cheek, and said, "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, addressed our stunned guests, and walked out of the restaurant with my head held high, leaving them in shocked silence. I had always been the practical one in our marriage. While Richard dreamed big and took risks, I maintained the stability our family needed. My own dreams of opening a financial consultancy for women were perpetually on hold. 3 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in our joint accounts, small transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Instead of confronting him, I began quietly investigating. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Richard had been systematically moving funds to a separate account for over a year, taking Isabel on expensive trips and looking at beachfront property, all while telling me we needed to save for retirement. The text messages on his unlocked phone confirmed everything, including his plan to leave me the day after Clara's graduation. What Richard had forgotten was my 30 years as a financial professional, and more importantly, the prenuptial agreement we signed 28 years ago, the agreement he had insisted upon, with a fidelity clause that would prove to be his undoing. While he plotted his escape, I built my case, consulted with attorneys, and prepared the divorce papers, timing everything to perfection. I drove to our home and calmly entered the space we had shared for over a decade. Upstairs, I found his suitcases already packed and hidden in the closet, a testament to his predictability. My phone buzzed with messages, but I only replied to my daughter, reassuring her. 3 hours later, Richard stormed in, clutching the envelope I had given him. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "You served me with divorce papers today of all days." I calmly explained that I was simply facilitating the new life he wanted. He smugly declared that our prenup had expired, but I corrected him, pointing out the clause that kept it active for the duration of the marriage. The color drained from his face as he realized the agreement he had created to protect himself would now cost him everything. His grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive announcement of his life. After a tense exchange where I revealed I had recorded his plans to defraud me, I left him to stay with his sister, Mary Ann, who had been the one to first alert me to the affair. Mary Ann greeted me with a fierce hug and a glass of wine. I explained the contents of the envelope, the divorce filing, the evidence, and the ironclad prenup. Soon after, my daughter Clara arrived, her makeup smudged from crying. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. I explained I didn't want to ruin her final semester, and she collapsed into my arms. We sat together as I told them the full story of Richard's deception. My phone then buzzed with a message from my attorney. The emergency filing was approved and all our joint accounts were now frozen.
Our conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. It was Richard, and he had brought Isabel with him. He looked furious and demanded I unfreeze the accounts so we could discuss this like reasonable adults. Clara stood up to him, her voice filled with a pain and anger I had never heard before. "You blew up our family on my graduation day, and it doesn't involve me?" The confrontation quickly revealed cracks in Richard and Isabel's united front, especially when she learned about the secret bank account he had. Clara's words finally hit their mark when she told her father she couldn't even look at him after his betrayal. Defeated, they left, but not before Richard promised this wasn't over. After they were gone, Clara collapsed next to me, and I held her, knowing that sometimes standing up for what's right is painful.
The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. Richard's hastily retained lawyer was no match for the facts. The judge, a sharp woman with no patience for dramatics, reviewed the prenuptial agreement and found it to be perfectly in order, dismissing the claim that it had expired. She then addressed the evidence of systematic fund transfers, ruling to maintain the freeze on all joint accounts, in granting me possession of the family home during the proceedings as stipulated by the infidelity clause. Richard was left with access only to the personal account he had been secretly funding. As we left the courtroom, he tried to appeal to our 28 years together, but I simply replied, "It counted for everything, until you decided it didn't," and walked away, leaving him to face the consequences. In the weeks that followed, Richard's carefully constructed world crumbled. Word spread through our social circle, and his image as a devoted family man was shattered. The financial freeze meant he couldn't follow through on the lavish promises he had made to Isabel. The beachfront property fell through, the luxury car was canceled, and soon, so was their relationship. Marianne informed me that Isabel had moved out after discovering his business wasn't as successful as he claimed, and that his savings were an illusion. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. I used my own financial security to rent an office and finally opened the consultancy I had dreamed of for years, specializing in helping women navigate their finances through major life transitions. The work was more fulfilling than anything I had ever done. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th anniversary. Richard looked haggard. His business was struggling. Cassandra was long gone, and most of our friends had distanced themselves from him. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. I retained our home, my retirement funds, and the majority of our investments. He was left with his personal possessions, his failing business, and what little money remained in his private account. The very document he insisted upon to protect himself had become his downfall. As we left the court, he approached me one last time, admitting his terrible mistake. I told him gently but firmly that the door to us was closed. "I hope you find happiness, Eleanor," he said. "You deserve it." It was perhaps the first honest thing he had said to me in years.
6 months later, my consultancy, Vance Financial Transitions, was thriving. I had a larger office and had hired 2 associates. My life was full, dedicated to empowering other women. Clara visited often, proud of the new life I had built. The woman who had once defined herself as Richard's wife and Clara's mother had discovered a new identity: mentor, business owner, and advocate. The envelope I had handed Richard at the restaurant wasn't just an escape plan. It was the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind it, I found not just revenge, but reinvention. In securing my financial future, I had reclaimed something far more valuable: myself.